What's up, everyone? Pittsburgh White Schwartz coming at you with another deck tech. We're doing a pretty fun one today. I'm joined today by Paru and Tanner.
What's up?
Hello.
And we are going to go over a deck we sort of came up with during the set review, starring the old Peshi and Prosciutto engine from Golden Wind paired with the DIO voice. And, you know, we're saying it's a DIO deck, but secretly it's actually a kakyoin deck. And we'll get into why that card does a lot of heavy lifting here. So I have a few slides here to talk about sort of why bar choice, and there's some inherent synergy there, but the main reason is that DIO is super resource hungry. He needs pay to ditch 2 at end of like your attack phase, beginning of encore step. You got to reverse everything, which means you got to spend extra resources to get those reverses, and he doesn't cantrip on play, he heals. So you're gonna have to have a lot of resources at the end to make sure you can even attempt to go off, but thankfully there's some inherent synergy there with the Prosciutto, because the Prosciutto negs power that will help your DIOs get reverses in the end game by just slamming the card down. And then of course in the games where you can't resolve DIO, because DIO has some counters that he can't really deal with, such as tap and a bunch of other things like that, things that save your opponent's characters mid-combat phase, so you can't get the full field reverse. You can just play the Prosciutto combo, which is a burn 4 and also minus 3k to something on your opponent's board. So there's some synergy there, both helping DIO get reverses as well as just giving you another finisher you can play. The new early game tools that we get in the premium booster are really good for helping us set up Peshi and Prosciutto. There's 3 good like tools to sort of turbo through your first deck to make sure you put not only the 3/2 Prosciuttos for your Peshi to add to hand, but also the 1/0 Prosciuttos engrave for your level 0 to hit when it dies, to send that Prosciutto to memory, which will make your Peshis even bigger on the first turn. And lastly, it's because DIO is just really cool, and we wanted to try to make a deck that made this kind of card work, because guaranteed damage means that for every DIO you resolve means your opponent basically has like -2 max life. That was pretty sick.
Bar choice is the best climax lineup.
It is true. You have been on for a inordinate amount of bar choice deck tech.
And only bar choice deck tech.
That is true.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention it's minus 1,000 times level, not 500
on play.
So it's a
minus
3K.
Yeah, it's even better.
It's on play. No, it's also the card on play.
I see.
It's a thousand times.
It's 1,000 times level instead of 500, and then it's another 3,000 with combo. So it's like with combo, it's a 6K to level 3s. But like if you're trying to help your DIO out, 3K is a lot of power. So
and it goes to the whole board, so it's like global to the whole. And you're gonna have a lot of stock with this deck. But yeah, there's some problems we got to solve. So the first thing, obviously, we need a full field reverse level 3. Again, that 3/2 Prosciutto gives us minus power times character level, and then more importantly, this 2/1 kakyoin and Hierophant Green is a 2K global on your turn, and then gives us a beefy 15.5K attacker when you have climax with the mem kick. And then the Joseph Rainstorm, whenever the Hierophant Green pops out to the field, will give any character on your board an additional 2K. This is actually more power available and better tools to clear your opponent's board than DIO's actual baked-in stand card, which was something that we noticed during the set review. And this deck is sort of what came from that discussion, is like looking into how we could best use this card. Another part about kakyoin that's really great is he helps us turn that 3/2 Prosciutto, which a lot of people view as a brick, even though it's a plus, into a better card, because you have to ditch a character to spawn Hierophant Green to the board. So you can, in the mid game, play down kakyoin, marker the Hierophant Green, discard the 3/2 Prosciutto to summon the Hierophant Green to the board, give extra power to maybe your Peshi to help get another reverse, which will make him very big by this point in the game, and then slam that bar to pick that 3/2 Prosciutto back up. So your mid game is sort of this non-early play based 2-1-1-0 combo loop off the bar, which actually generates you a fuck ton of stock. I mean, we've been playing this in the sim quite a bit, and it is not uncommon to hit games where you have like 9, 10, 11 stock with this.
It's really funny to have your Peshi at level 2 swinging in at like 11 and 12K.
Yeah, and it happens fairly frequently with this deck. It's actually pretty crazy. The kakyoin is even better than I think we evaluated.
Oh yeah, the kakyoin is the MVP, dude. This card is insane.
That card is super crazy. It's definitely like the best stand card that they've made, and I'm actually really surprised that it didn't show up on like Jojo's release of JP and like any, because this thing is like pretty powerful with helping you continually clear board. I think the mem kick's also the cherry on top. If your opponent does have a card that like can sort of rest itself, or like a counter or something that like brings something back rested or rests the character after it's reversed, you can just mem kick that thing off the board. And again, again, it's a 2-1, so your opponent can't like mess with you with like you were using an early play at level 2. You just have these beefy 2-1s that clear over your opponent's board, and then the Hierophant Green just pops back under kakyoin, and you can use it again the following turn. And then of course we want a slammer every turn to keep up damage output. We are bar choice, which, you know, you have the bar to help filter into other climaxes every single turn. We have a real climax swap now. And we also have the 2-1 DIO, which draw 2 ditches 2 at level 2 for like no cost if you play it on a full board, to help us just dig into extra climaxes whenever we use. So that was sort of how we approached the issues. And again, a lot of the issues that you may have experienced with the Peshi and Prosciutto engine from set 1, which is like not having a lot of deck speed, not having ways to like put your cards in grave. Jojo's has the modern tools to really mitigate that, which is sort of what has brought us back to the bar engine for this deck, sort of build these resources that DIO needs. So here is the full deck. The first thing you're going to notice with the level 0 line, which is worth noting before we really get into specific cards, it's almost like an Oshinoko situation. You're not going to be killing a lot of cards at level 0. However, that kind of plays pretty well into Peshi, where even if you unfortunately for some reason haven't resolved even a single like Prosciutto going to memory or anything like that, you can still probably get some reverses from your opponent's lingering level 0s, and you just sort of go off from there. Because we're not going to kill cards and we got to keep our hand advantage up, we are opting for a 6 stack of differing clock pluses, which we've split. And you can mess with this however you want. If you like the Jolene better, you could probably go down to 2 DIO, but that's also some necessary yellow. But we do have a lot of mill. Like I said, we have the Jolene, which mills. We have the DIO, which mills. We have the Fuka 0, the Jotaro that also mills. And then, of course, Peshi level 0 also mills, along with your Brainstorm. We have a lot of ways to dig through our deck. And then I also have some cards here for if we do not play Whitesnake, because Whitesnake, depending on especially your local meta, which for a deck like this, which we'll touch on when we get to the end, this is probably going to be a deck that you're only going to really play at a local level. Don't think you're going to be taking this one to regionals, especially with how many threats in the meta right now have tap and blowout counters that just completely stop DIO, although you can pivot into the Prosciutto finisher. It's not what you'd like to do. So if you wanted to play Whitesnake or didn't want to play Whitesnake, depending on your local meta, we have some other options available to you, extra cards as well as some unique card play. But jumping into individual cards, we're going to start with the clock pluses. So the Jolene is on play, pay 1, put a card from your hand into clock, check up to 6, and then add 2. So this is a +1. Also puts a bunch of cards into your waiting room to get those Prosciuttos in there early. And then the DIO is a sort of free clock plus. When it becomes reversed, you put the top card of your deck into clock, mill 2, and then salvage it extra lower, where X is the total combined level of the cards milled by this effect. So Cigarettes Ricky, free 1, just like the Kurumi. I think these are both really, really good. I've tried shifting this around like 1 to 4, 1 to 2, but a 3-3 split for both of them is really nice. The DIO specifically just being free, giving you that extra stock to maybe like pay out a triggered climax, something at 0 with a Brainstorm is really nice. But the Jolene, just the raw deck speed of 6 cards on first deck is really, really powerful, considering that our combo doesn't mill any cards.
Yeah, just throwing out DIOs turn 1, like going second, putting multiple DIO feels so strong.
Yeah,
because you're gonna get all your hand back, and then you're gonna go, I still have all my stock.
Mm-hmm.
Can Brainstorm, can play Jolene.
Do whatever you need to do.
I was just going to say, yeah, after of playing a ton of just pure Golden Wind in the past, these 2 cards with alone make it feel infinitely better. And if they were searchable by those older cards, like, it would be insane. So I understand why, like, how important having this amount of deck speed and just pure plussing at 0 is for this set. It's huge.
Yeah, it's just a lot. The trade-off is, again, you're not going to be killing many cards 0, but we want to have bodies for our Peshi. So it kind of plays into our strategy. Speaking of Peshi, we are running 3 of the Peshi and Beach Boy here, which is on play mill 2. If there's a level 0 character among them, this card can side without soul penalty, which is pretty nice to have on a level 0 that we have to play a lot of. And then when it dies, as long as your memory has 2 or less cards, you can grab the Grand Teachings Prosciutto, which is this 1/0 that has to be in memory that makes your Peshi bigger, and you can send that to memory. So ideally, you can, turbo through your deck at level 0 with either like Fuka 0 or something like that. You can, if all these cards die, you can resolve those first. Like, obviously, your DIO is going to resolve during your opponent's battle step. Then you can resolve the Fuka, and then lastly, you can resolve the Peshi, which gives you the most possible chances to hit a Prosciutto into the waiting room if you don't have one in there already. And just 1 Prosciutto in your waiting room starts your Peshi out at a very respectable 55, climax down 65, and then he's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger as the game goes on, as you shove Prosciutto after Prosciutto into memory. We are playing 3 of him just because our only green is going to be the old package, so we want to be able to freely completely level pretty much any piece of it, whether it's a 3-2, either of the 1-0s or this, to make sure our green is online. So we're going to just sort of accept that we are losing one of those pieces. Not that big of a deal considering that Jojo's now has modern tools. Not that big of a problem to just lose one. You're still going to have plenty in rotation. And then we're also going to play the Joseph Brainstorm. Like we said, that first effect, whenever a card pops out from marker area, which in our deck is only the kakyoin and Hierophant Green, we give any character on our board 2k. That Hierophant Green pop out is an act, so you can do that at any time during your turn, so you can feel free to sequence that as is necessary, whether you need to fill your board before playing a 2-1 DIO to get your stock back, or if you need to do something else, you can sequence that however you'd like to make sure you get that power buff at the right time. And then it is a self-tap search Brainstorm. We do generate a lot of stock in this deck, so we're gonna mash this down pretty much every turn because it is our main way to get cards that we want. You're going to have to sculpt kind of naturally as this goes on most of the time, but when you hit Brainstorm and you hit like an extra climb or something like that, that's your time to go pick up DIOs and sculpt for your finisher. You got to play ahead a decent amount, just sort of the nature of the deck.
Seeing Jolene and Dio next to each other isn't weird to me. Like, it doesn't fuck with anything in my head. Seeing Peshi and Joseph next to each other, something about that image.
Yeah,
dissonant.
it is a little bit of cognitive dissonance because they never appeared in the same season.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm glad that we found a use for these golden cards.
Yeah, I just want to say also, since you are blinding a lot, like with your level 1 combo, you're blind stalking when you trigger bars, it also just helps you see what you blind at times if you hit a Brainstorm, just to look through your deck, take note of, oh, I'm missing, 2 of my 3-2s and they're somewhere in the last 3 attacks worth of stock,
Yeah.
That's a good
just
point.
it always helps. That's the one situation where I would prefer to have a search over a salvage in this deck, is the fact that you can see.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Rounding out the level zeros, 2 of the White Snake Rico also has that nice anti-marker and trait nuke effect. Depending on the matchup, could be really good or just do nothing. But the Rico here is really nice, just helps us throw prosciuttos, turn them into cards that we can play. And then again, I already touched on the Fukuzero, but we have the Jotaro here. It is mainly for the Fukuzero effect. That center run effect is, I don't think that really matters. Maybe you trade with your opponent's utility character in the center lane, but more often than not, he's just going to die. It's just some extra free tech, as well as being some red fic. And then 2 of the Jolene Climax swap. No one-ofs here. We're not really selective enough to play any real one-ofs at level 0 in this deck. Although we are playing Rico, there are some things could tech in, but we want to try to avoid one-ofs when possible, unless they're like cards we're comfortable death gripping.
Of all the games I've played, that Jotaro has never lived by running to the center slot.
Yeah, I think in one game it lived, but very uncommon.
2,500 for a Climax swapper is kind of an oversight. But
yeah, this is your biggest level 0, is this Climax swap. We are playing 2
Massive.
because we want 1 in rotation pretty frequently, especially because of a tech Climax combo we choose to play. But getting into level 1, we've got the Grateful Dead Peshi and Beach Boy, which is off bar. This card from Golden Wind. It can't side. It's 1,500 power for every prosciutto in your memory. And when you get a reverse, you blind stock up to 1 and then choose up to 1 3-2 in your waiting room out of hand. So it is a stock charge and a plus. However, you are plussing a card that you really can't use on the following turn, which kind of sucks. But again, we already talked about that in our problems to solve. We have ways to turn that prosciutto into a better card. And even just clocking it, if we stay at 1, try to find another climax. If we didn't trigger 1, to get a bar to our hand for the next turn is pretty good. Peshi also, because we are turboing through our deck more, and it is more likely that we have multiple prosciuttos in our memory when Peshi hits the board for the first time, it is far more likely, at least in my personal experience, if you guys can corroborate, that this card actually lives in most 1k1 matchups. Having a 7k Peshi just chill in 2 lanes, if you were able to set one up, is actually pretty reasonable.
Oh yeah, it's cross turn power, huh?
Yeah, he gets pretty big. Can go up to 8-5, 9-5 when you slam with all 3, and then obviously kakyoin makes him even bigger as the game goes on.
Yeah, that prosciutto can get pretty big too.
Yeah, because he also gains extra power. I don't have a slide specifically dedicated to the prosciutto, so I'm going to blow him up here pretty good because I'm bad at my job. But he gets 2k for every prosciutto you have in memory. memory. So for every copy of himself, he goes up to the exact same power line. So he'll be start out smaller and then go 55, 75, and then 95. So he gets even bigger there. And then when he's reversed, if you slam him down, you can send him to memory. So you can trade with something like somebody's climax combo, which typically sit like 45. Trade this in with the bar, and then your Peshis get even bigger. Pretty common line to go for. All right, so moving into level 2, we have the kakyoin, which we've gushed about a lot already, so I'll be quick. On turn 2K, on play, choose a Hierophant Green in your waiting room, put it underneath him as a marker, and then discard a character, summon the Hierophant Green to your stage. The Hierophant Green is 1500 power for each of your other stand or stand user characters, coming in at 12.5 by himself. 2K on top of that with the kakyoin makes him 14.5, climax down 15.5, and then when he gets a reverse, you can memory kick stuff. So you can get cards with hand encore off the board, anything sticky, slowly pick apart your opponent's board, and then, you know, after you hit encore step, provided the Hierophant Green's still on your board, you can just pop him back under kakyoin as a marker and do it again the next turn. So the fact that he's not big off turn doesn't really matter. You just throw him back under and then go again. Definitely the star of the show in this deck, and reasonably so. This is a ton of fucking power, especially when combined with the Joseph. You are going to hit over your opponent's board very, very easily with this every single turn. The only awkward part about this card is that it is red. We included about as much red as we easily can. However, once you get this card to the board, like say you clock a Jotaro or a extra Joseph, once he's on the board and has that Hierophant Green marker, you don't need red again, so you don't really have to worry about that after you get him down once. He's going to chill there pretty much the rest of the game because he's the way you'll get the rest of your cards to work. Pretty decent mid game, all things considered. As the power ramps up and ramps up and ramps up, your 1/0s really scale very well, combined with this next level 2 card, which is this DIO. During your turn, gain 6k, so he's 11k on your turn. On play, as long as you have 2 or more other characters on the board when you play him, you can draw 2, drop 2, and then if you play him to a full board, remember that Hierophant Green pops out as an act, so you can do that first, then play DIO last. You can grab a stand user from your waiting room and put it into your stock. Also a good way to pay out a blind stock, like Tanner mentioned before, just to make sure what it is before you put a clean card back in. Guarantee that your card is clean. Pay out trigger choices possibly, where you know where they are. Just a great card overall to continue slamming over and over again, because that's the name of the game. And because we are playing a deck in the current meta, we cannot not play anti-change. We are playing the new one because it is heavily stock costed. Pay 3, sack a character, and then send one of your opponent's higher level characters to waiting room. We're gonna have a giant stock overhead threshold, so it's pretty free for us to just like threaten this. It's not gonna set us behind even when we are trying to like resolve DIO at endgame, because our ideal board is actually just to resolve double DIO in this deck. That is what we're shooting for, because again, we're going to use the kakyoin and Hierophant Green to make sure that we can reverse any super sticky cards that our opponent is trying to wall us out with, because they stop one lane, they stop all of DIO. So very important that we prioritize just going for double DIO.
So this is a weird one, the white snake.
Yeah, the white snake is an inclusion that I decided to toss in here just because in the right matchup, considering that we are playing bar, you can death grip one part of this, switch into the climax, death grip it, because in the matchups that you will play this, it does really just win you the game. Paru, I think you were on the receiving end of some white snake looping.
Yeah, when I was trying to test the Toho custom set, Oliver was playing me with 8-choice Jojo, and every time he played on the white snake, it was like, well, I guess I can't do anything this turn cycle. Hope he doesn't have it again next turn.
Yeah, depending on the matchup, you can completely win games off this card, which is why we only have a 1-1 split. And depending on your local meta, it might not do anything. So again, once we get through the rest of the cards, a couple more here, we do have some alternatives that you can put in this slot. And then of course you just toss another Geo choice in. But it can be an absolute blowout. And even in the games where you just play it as a body, it's reasonably big cross turn and plays directly into your strategy of picking apart your opponent's board with 2 ones that cannot be anti-changed, while you continue to like Peshi combo in 1 or 2 lanes. So he keeps up your power line. So he's not really a dead card as an attacker. And getting into our 2 different finishers, we're going to start with the DIO, of course. During your turn, gets 2k power, so he's going to start at 11k. He heals, and then at the beginning of the encore step, you have the choice down, and there's no characters in your opponent's center stage, or all of them are reversed. You can pay 2, ditch 2, and just claw kick the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck. So 2 guaranteed damage, very fitting for DIO, that, he stopped time and then he fucks you up, and there's nothing you can do about it. Read's a lot more powerful than it is. You got to spend a lot to get this going. You might have to play down 2 of these, pop out your Hierophant Green, and play down like a prosciutto to shrink your opponent's opponent's board to get things going. But if you do, again, double DIO means your opponent's -4 life. You only need to get your opponent to 3-3 to win the game. So even if your opponent is at 2, say something like 2-5, you only need to squeeze 2 attacks on your board to get there. So can be very, very powerful. And with kakyoin in the back row, your DIOs are actually going to start at 14k with climax, which is a lot more reasonable than DIO's baked in assist. It's a lot of power. So you're going to have a lot of things to spread out to make sure you can hit over both lanes. You're going to have possibly like a 15-5 Hereford Green, a 16k DIO, and a 14k DIO. You should be able with that board to reverse most things, again, provided that your opponent doesn't have a blowout defensive counter that stops this in its tracks. But when they do, you can pivot into playing the old prosciutto finisher, which is again on play minus X power, where X is equal to your opponent's character's levels times 1,000. So 3k minus to all level 3s in your opponent's board, 2k, 1k, going down like that. Combos on that same bar. And then on attack, pay 2, ditch 2, same cost, but on attack this time instead of encore step. Burn 4, choose a character in your opponent's board, minus 3k. Have had times where, you know, go for a DIO, my opponent pulls something off, or I'm not able to close it. DIO is encore phase, so if you're not going to kill your opponent with DIO, you can just hold back your resources, and then on the follow-up turn, kind of put together single or double prosciutto to close out the game. Because DIO does heal, I mean, it's unlikely in the current meta that you live if you're already at level 3, but if you do, the fact that you can reasonably toss this down, because, you know, if you don't combo with DIO, it's an encore phase, you do save all your resources, you can kind of just slam these down and go for it on the next turn with some burn. So you have like a 2-turn threat baked in by playing the bar engine alongside DIO.
Yeah, and one other thing to point out is it's 3k to any of your opponent's characters, so if your opponent has some annoying back row also, this can just pop them with the climax combo.
You can do like one copy of this, like if you're going for the 2-turn thing, do this first, pop whatever it is on their field, let them fail to kill you, and then DIO them on the follow-up.
Yep. Whatever way you need to do it, you can mix and match it. Here's the list all laid out again. Again, we are trying to, as much as we can, stay away from one-ofs in a deck like this, unless, of course, like I said before, we are comfortable death gripping them. The epitome of that is the White Snake, followed by the anti-change counter, and the matchups for those are important. You will hold them. But if you're not going to play White Snake, we have some alternatives here. Alternatives for when White Snake doesn't do anything. So the easiest thing you can do is toss in another 2-1 DIO. This card's really powerful, adds a lot of consistency to the deck. You do want to see it pretty much all the time at level 2, because it's a way that without clocking, you can try to dig into a climax to do your Peshi combo again. And then, you know, you played this for free, you're still going to probably generate resources off the Peshi and keep slamming, which is really... You can also toss in the 3-2 Polnareff early play, which is a 2 or less early play. Our deck, yes, we do have deck speed options, but they're mostly for first deck since they require us to punch ourselves, which we don't want to do later in the game. So our opportunities to use it are fairly limited. However, you can toss a copy in of this just for an extra healer on top of your DIOs. And then he also heals to the bottom of your deck, just kind of cool, gets around anti-heal. That's not really a big issue, but nice little feather in his cap. And then the spiciest choice of them all is the Guccio. We talked about this card in the set review. This is a anti-side floodgate, because all characters on the board, whether yours or your opponent's, cannot side. I mean, your opponent has to front, particularly funny against Overlord. If you could toss this down. And then he has another effect which helps our DIOs get power for reverses, which is you can punch yourself for each character to give that character 2,500 power until end of turn. So each character on your board gets that effect. So you can, for each DIO, punch yourself and give that card an extra 2,500. You know, DIO just kind of ends the game. So the fact that we are expending our life to give ourselves extra power doesn't really matter. And obviously, if you run any of these instead of White Snake, you just toss in an extra DIO choice. And you just play 4-bar, 4 choice.
Yeah, the way that Jojo's set up, you should never have... Power should never be, like, the issue. Like, you can always build to have infinite power. It's that other stuff, like sat counters and encore, or just be tap counter.
And, like, again, that kakyoin is, like, the centerpiece of the deck. Do not be fooled by the generally low count of red. It's not a DIO deck. It's not a Grateful Dead deck. It's actually a kakyoin deck. Kakyoin really is the star of the show. Any closing thoughts on the deck before we wrap up?
If you bought a playset of Stardust Crusaders and Stone Ocean, and you built like the meta choice pants deck, it would require very little extra investment to get this represented for like a fun like side thing. Because the Peshis and the prosciutto are like pretty cheap still.
Yeah, because of the reprint.
And then you just need a few extra staples like the DIO and the Jolene Clock Plus. That might be like an extra like 15-20 bucks, whatever.
Yeah, they're all the same rarity, so it's not too bad to grab those extra
it does mean
cards.
You can have like you'll have an extra like fun deck to play alongside like the meta deck. And I
Yeah.
always think that kind of thing is pretty cool.
And I want to stress that in the close, you're probably going to want to keep this one just around for locals because Cap is pretty omnipresent with Hololive and Overlord, as well as just generally like Slime having a lot of like defensive counters and things of that nature, and being able to push pretty high power across its entire board. Again, like you do have the ability to pump a ton of power to your board that like doesn't target. Like if you play the prosciutto, you drink the Murons. But even that board that I talked about, where one Dio is 16, your Hierophant Green is 15.5, and your Dio, their last Dio is 14, that actually still loses to triple Muron with Memory Kick on its nose, unless you find an extra minus power there, because the Muron can jump to 15.5. But again, you have a lot of different ways to pump a lot of power here. That shouldn't be a major issue. But you know that the meta is fairly toxic to this right now, so you're probably going to keep it for locals. However, it is a ton of fun. We've sleeved this up in the sim a lot, and we're instantly very shocked at how well it worked. Again, particularly the kakyoin engine is like really
we
crazy.
put this together as a joke at first.
And we were
And
like,
then it
wait,
just started working.
it's better than all of the other builds that we've been playing, outside of course the meta choice pants deck is probably, you know, a little better than this one, but you do get to play Dio effectively, which is the point. And kakyoin is really great.
And you get to play Peshi in his weird root vegetable head.
Yeah, he does have a weird carrot head.
Anything to add, Tanner?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I really like the fact that this deck gets to use those older cards again. I've loved the Peshi engine. I tried so many random weird things to get it to work in the past, and now that we actually have deck speed to get that functioning early, as well as like an alternative top end with Dio just having a bajillion power combined with kakyoin, you're not worried about board ever normally. I mean, even in the situations of like the Murons, right? You just drop a single copy of the Prosciutto, and then there goes their Memkit counter. That's 3K. Or 2K. That's 2K. So like the fact that you can just get to slam board every single turn, you slam climax, you have these massive characters, you just wipe their board, and sometimes they even live and you don't have to burn any resources and you just keep going. It's a feel good deck, and you got a lot of funny things you can do. Again, I love the Guccio. I think that having that card is like teched in there over any card. Like I probably would do in 3-2 Jolene Dio and then 1 Guccio, so you don't change up too bad of your colors, and that way you can keep that threat in at all times of, okay, my characters are massive, now you have to front them. Enjoy.
Yeah, you have to play the game with me. Also,
they have the choice to punch themselves too.
That is true.
Hey, I'll
take
and
that,
then you're winning there. Yeah, free damage.
Also, just like playing, I'm very familiar with this, playing a lot of Slime recently. Playing a purely 2-1 mid game, like 2-1 and 1-0 mid game, and being like, I don't care about anti-change counter in a meta where like everyone is teching anti-change counter for Eins, means that like your opponent's probably never seen this fucking deck before. They might just like have sculpted a dead card that like doesn't do anything, because these cards are so big. The raw power of the anti-change counter probably isn't saving them either. So the fact that you can just like kind of just swing out with Reckless Abandon and still like pump up your Peshi to be like ridiculous power to like keep getting reverses in the mid game, which was another problem with the old deck, is you didn't have a way to like keep using the Peshis, and they kind of fell off. They never fall off here because of kakyoin. All right, I think that's about it. In the close here, again, more set reviews, more deck techs on the way. Wanted to get this fun one out there just because we've been doing a lot of meta stuff and things of that nature on the channel. I think the last deck tech I did was like Bochi, which I wanted to cover. I hadn't seen anybody talk about like some specific techs, and particularly the version that used Takitsubo very much, so I wanted to get that out there. But I wanted to get a fun one on the books because we had a lot of fun with this in like testing after we did the set review, and it's always fun to show something that like maybe people haven't thought of or whatever, particularly with like, again, that kakyoin and Hierophant Green. Didn't see a lot of it when this set dropped in JP, so it's cool to like have a deck that flexes a card that we saw as evaluated as strong, and then like see it go in practice. Any closing stuff from you guys on the way out? Shout outs, anything like that?
Thank you for watching. I am Paru, and I was doing content for a while called Par's Custom Corner. If you're looking for more like that, you can check out J3 Puff and the Whims of the Creator. I think he just did Umi Neko, and I know people like Umi Neko, so if you're interested in that, maybe you want to go check that out.
I'm one of those people. I love Umi Neko.
Yeah, I know.
Tanner?
Yeah, no, nothing for me. Just thanks everybody for coming and checking out the best piece of fiction's fun deck.
And if you're going to any One Piece stuff, I'm sure you'll see Tanner there. He's all over the place for that. So.
Yeah, I got quite a bit of tournaments going around. If anyone is going to Orlando for that Nats, I'll see you there. And then otherwise, I'm sure whenever they announce the next wave of in-persons, anything in the Northeast, I will be there. So
yeah, you guys are all over for that. So with that, Pittsburgh White Sports signing off, and we'll see you all in the next one.